Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 7th um, Kubernetes Steering Committee public meeting. As a general reminder, these meetings are recorded and we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which essentially boils down to please be excellent to each other. Um, with that, uh, I have, I'll drop the link to the agenda again. We don't have too many things on the agenda. Um, but I'll start at least with just a quick KubeCon update. Um, for the we usually do a steering AMA as like the first thing at each sort of summit. Um, and this time around, there will be uh, likely Jeff Sika, Chris Anachek, Amy, and I potentially, no, I think that's it. There to also participate in a sort of general CNCF AMA, um, as well as just be a time for us and other potential community members to meet and interact with them. The details of that are still being worked out. Like it might be we usually allocate an entire hour for steering, and it might be like 45 minutes steering, 45 minutes CNCF, or half an hour each or something like that. I think that's the main one there. And then just a general reminder that we do technically need to start working on the steering talk. Um,
I think we need to go through Machi's doc. Machi wrote a few questions, and then I think we can reach a consensus early and then send it over to the past steering committee members. Maybe we all can take up a few members and coordinate with them.
okay. Um, sounds good to me. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or thoughts on KubeCon? KubeCon Paris. Uh, Other thing, Pago, you mentioned that there is going to be a KubeCon China, and that was August 21st and 22nd. We should think about getting another contributor summit or something going there for that one too, and start that conversation early.
Are we
Uh,
planning anything for case like KubeCon India? Like any contributor summit?
um, yes, it like
Okay.
it is the CNCF is just assuming that we will have one there, but like we haven't started planning.
We have to find the leads soonish after Paris, I guess.
Okay, yeah, we
I think
can.
this time we need to parallelly plan multiple cases. We have
Uh,
reached to that junction.
yep, we certainly will. So it'll get interesting, but that's more of a contribex thing. Sorry. Um, okay. Is there, oh, just picking, is there any other KubeCon related things? Okay. The next thing I wanted to bring up was, sorry, creating a shared drive for Kubernetes at large. This is something we've talked about briefly in the past, but and Aaron was actually working on a way of like automatically provisioning them for SIGs and working groups. Um, but that kind of fell off a bit. Um, and at this point, I'm leaning towards just, creating one for us to use because especially as there's been more document sharing related issues lately. Um, and the reason for it being a steering issue is that only SC1, 2, or 3 can provision a shared drive um, as the only members that have access to the Kubernetes G Suite workspace. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Can I just go ahead and provision it then, you think?
I, that sounds fine. Also, I think the people in the call today, Nabern's the only other one that has one of the SC accounts. I think most of us haven't interacted with that.
Okay. Yeah, Steven is the other person that
Yeah,
has it.
Steven's the other one couldn't make it today, right?
Yep. Okay. With that, then Nabrun, annual reports.
Yes. So what is the timeline? When do we send that out? We discussed it last time during our January public meeting that we would send out the pre-filled data as much as possible, and then we will ask people to mostly answer two sections. What did they do other than the caps, and what do they need help with? Because we saw like a good value to be created in those two questions, right?
Um,
So
I
just
don't see
iterating if you're on the same page.
I
Sorry,
don't
Bob, go on.
see I was just saying I don't see the dates or anything like that in the notes. Um so it might
Yeah, I
be
think we
in
did not
the
decide on the timeline as
okay.
such.
Um Sorry, could you repeat your thoughts on the timeline?
Uh,
Or is it just like we need to establish a timeline?
we need to establish a timeline because we discussed it in the private meeting, if I recall correctly, that we will put the uh, date for review to be somewhere like a week or two after KubeCon. And since KubeCon is happening earlier than last year, we can actually like be with last year's timelines without even modifying anything and giving people actually more time to work on the reports after KubeCon, and then keep the date to merge to be, let's say, like 2 to 3 weeks after that date to be up for review.
Uh
So I think at this point we just need to decide on the dates.
let me pull up a calendar. So 2 weeks after KubeCon would be April 5th. If we want to try and aim for that in terms of opening a PR.
Then we can do like April 26th as the
Yeah.
date of merge.
Yeah, with I'd just set the general goal of merging by end of April, May. Like I we sent out the deadline as the 26th or and it's not even that far that many days. So I'm just rambling here. Um
Mhm.
yeah. That seems, you know, fine to me. What do others think? General okay. Um Now, Bruin, did you want to send out that email or
I can.
okay? If anyone else would like to,
So I'm just writing the action items from what we discussed on our channel, generating 2023 scaffolding, send out comms, uh, license to ping their groups.
you know, And for us as steering members, that's the general time to start reaching out to our groups to coordinate things and just do a health check to see if they're doing okay.
I mean, if someone else wants to take it, like, please feel free to write an email and send out the comms. That would be great exercise.
I mean, we're just mentioning to KDev that we have this time for annual reports, right?
Yep.
I'm
It's
fine to
that
do
and the
that.
dates and everything.
Yeah, sure. How soon do we want to send it?
Uh,
We probably
not
at
this
least want to
week.
merge the generator changes next week.
Yep.
Yeah, I would do that. We generate all the scaffolding and then send it out. But yeah, this week would be terrible to send it out with code or enhancement freeze.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'll review the generator changes again later. You have some comments from Steven, and I'll set a reminder to email next week.
Okay. So let's try to merge this PR this week, as well as I'll, like, once that PR is merged, I can generate the scaffolding very easily, so that you can, like, send the email next week. Awesome. Cool. And then yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think I'm good. Any questions? Okay, we don't have any other attendees now.
Um, are there any annual reports? Anything else on annual reports that people wish to bring up?
I'm going to plan to use that email to also, so we don't send people so many emails. We're hoping people read that one. I want to keep it brief, but I also want to highlight it's a good time for SIGs as they reflect to look at sub project leads. I know, for example, we haven't done that in SIG testing yet, even though a couple of our sub projects is pretty obvious. So I think I've talked to a few people about it, and I think it's a good idea, and they keep forgetting to get to it. So I think we should include a PSA about that while SIGs are looking over the past year.
Definitely a good idea. The other thing, like, we should all emphasize is that the leads themselves don't have to be the ones to fill things out.
Right. It doesn't need to be your chairs or tails doing everything.
Yeah.
I think a lot of SIGs get hung up on that.
Okay. Um, is it, sorry. Okay. Is there any other annual reports things? Okay. Then I will just bring it. I put it under vote, but I don't know if it technically needs a vote. Are we comfortable with just removing the funding repo and just making it part of the case steering repo? It's essentially one issue template.
Mechanics wise, what all can we do to uh
I can transfer the
like,
issues and things like that.
okay, what about redirecting inbound links? Is there anything we can do about that since they're two existing repos?
Um,
That's really
I
the only thing I would want to look at. It's just how do we mitigate the like legacy stuff there?
yeah.
Because I do think going forward, it's unnecessarily confusing. They're just filing an issue with steering.
Yeah.
There's nothing actually. There's like nothing in the repo. It's an issue holder.
So for in my quickly looking over using Hound, it's all stuff either in K community or K steering that points towards funding. So like that's an easy fix
So
for
we
us.
can just patch up the links.
Yep.
Okay. That there probably also aren't a lot of cross links, and they're probably like any other links are probably to issues. If we can just move the issues, then
Yep. That sorry. Yeah, there's only 3 open issues and they're all currently stale. So
right.
um
Well, maybe we'll be a little bit more on top of things if we have one issue tracker to
yeah.
track. I'm +1.
Okay. Is everyone cool with that thought?
Yep, I'm +1. So just to be sure myself with the mechanics, so we're putting the funding repo to archived, and we're moving all the open issues to the steering repo, and we will update any backlinks to the funding repo to the steering repo. That's all
Yep.
right.
Yeah, and we
And
can put a note in the README and stuff in the old
Yeah,
repo.
we'll put a note in the readme, and we'll potentially also move the issue template for funding to the steering repo, right?
yep.
Okay.
And just a note about like in the funding repo, there's a few examples of, you know, what are funding requests and all that. So that's a pretty easy, minimal effort type thing.
Okay. I'm just trying to write the things so that we don't forget.
And I will take that AI to move and transition things. Might not happen this week, but I will try and make it happen by our next meeting.
So we haven't actually heard from everyone yet.
Oh, sorry. Patrick, Paco, are you both okay with
I'm okay. I don't have much personal experience with this repo anyway, so I no strong opinions.
yeah.
I have no. I have not reading the repo yet, and I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much just has a little bit of context and then an issue template. So if you want to request some like not $3 million GCP credits, but like some small amount of funding that we may be able to reach out to the CNCF for, that isn't something you're just going to get from the K-Timber assets, then you file an issue in that repo, and steering's supposed to look at it. And if we think it makes sense, then we reach out to the CNCF.
Yeah.
But it's a public tracker because ultimately to actually get things resolved, we have to have a ticket with the CNCF, but that's not public. So
you might actually be able to, let's see, on some of the, like the D&O insurance one, we can close or don't have to migrate the EKS cluster for scale testing for the Windows Service Proxy. Ben, you at least responded on some of that stuff last year.
I think we said that they should go to K-Timber. I'm probably just
Okay.
gonna circle back and close it out. I'll take a look.
Yeah, and then the other one was something for Josh that I believe got handled already. So I think we might not even need to transfer any issues. So I'll check with Josh.
Yeah.
If you want to take on the Windows Service Proxy one.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any items they would like to discuss in the public steering meeting?
Just one thing. So last year I remember we discussed about like making one change at a time to, or one change per year to governance, and we had like two more changes that we wanted to think about last year, but we did not. First thing was terms for chairs and TLs. So do we start thinking about? I know that there's already, I think, some open PRs around it. So shall we bring those back up and discuss again?
Um, in general, I believe most of the other leads were okay with terms for chairs. It's just people were wanting to be very particular about the wording on it.
I
Then
just wanted to
yeah,
get a vibe check in the room. Like, how do we feel about bringing that conversation back up and make it happen this year?
I am +1 to that.
I haven't really had time to think about this recently. I kind of want to revisit some of the other stuff. I'd also like to see a little more success in getting SIGs to think about what their succession might be like before we start trying to poke them to rotate people. I might not even wind up being as essential if we get people into the habit. I've seen a few SIGs actually starting to bring on new leads, even while they have current leads, finally. So I don't know. I feel like it might not actually be the best timing. But if
So,
it is or isn't, I'd want to take a little bit of time to think about it again before jumping
so
back on that.
yeah, just one note. Like, I think the terms proposal doesn't talk much about rotation yet, because I think those discussions were mostly confined to the term limits one. Because if we enforce limits, then rotation and succession would be very important. We can't do limits without thinking about sustainability and succession planning.
But even without limits, like terms don't really have much other purpose than trying to get SIGs to look at rotating in folks. And yeah, I think to do that, we need a little. I mean, SIGs need to even have people that they can be rotating in.
Yeah.
And I mean, we may not need to push harder on that. I think we kind of have like credit to spend with our sort of soft influence with the community, and that we should spend it wisely, and we shouldn't try to pressure things when we don't need to. So the thing that I would want to pressure right now is like the sub project leads and stuff, building your backbench of leads and see what we can get from that. I
That's
think we
actually
haven't spent much on that yet.
I was gonna say that is actually something that we should really push with the annual reports check-ins.
Yeah, I mean
Is
that's what I'm planning to do, but I think I would like to give it a little breather and see like what comes of that. Like, do we actually commit SIGs to do that? Because I think if we can't even commit SIGs to start building some kind of quasi backbench for who might be leads, then we're getting ahead of ourselves to tell them you should start thinking about rotating. Like, if we get them to build to start thinking about who in the SIG might be, and recognizing people in other ways than the top level positions, then I mean, they may do more of that themselves. I think we've also gotten pretty far just kind of talking to folks about this stuff. We want to, I think we want to use like required governance as little as possible. It has a lot of friction, and it also doesn't necessarily result in action anyhow. People are not like machines evaluating the markdown files and then just doing what it says. Uh, the more like we get a lot of value out of outreach.
One thing I feel we should add to the annual reports is number of sub-project leads. and people don't need to do manual number crunching on that. This can be generated as well.
Sure, maybe next year. One of my concerns this year is that we didn't actually get a chance to follow through on like cutting down the report at all. And last year we had trouble getting people to file it at all. And most SIGs, the answer will be 0 / it would be easy for us to collect that information.
It's not most, it's all of them are at 0 right now. I have not seen
Really?
anyone
Okay.
subject.
Yeah.
I have not
There's
seen any K community PRs adding subject leads.
there's some groups that basically are operating with them in an unofficial capacity. It just be taking it to the next step.
So SIG Contribex Comms has a charter on Contribex Comms sub-project leads. Even before we started thinking about sub-project leads, and that was one of the examples that we based our sub-project leads charter on. Well, then I think we're at the end of the agenda, or do we have anything else to discuss?
I don't think so at this time.
I did take a quick look at the funding repo. Yeah, that one's closed out. It's just the 2 other ones, and I do think that the one of them was definitely handled. I signed you, Bob, to confirm since I think you were
Okay.
involved in that. And that leaves the D&O insurance one.
Yeah. The CNCF has something like their process for that has changed a bit, and they have something there now. So I think it is theoretically handled. Just have to look more into it. I can take that one too.
We'll unstale it and then follow up with what the result
Okay.
was. Okay. I also didn't want to let them just close out stale. I don't think that's the right way for us
Yeah.
to handle things. That would actually be something I would suggest is that the steering repo, if we haven't already, I'll call that now before we leave. I'd like to turn off the stale bot for the steering repo. I don't think the steering committee should ever be allowed to let an issue just close because we didn't respond. Like maybe that's okay for like KK features or something. I don't think that's acceptable for steering requests. We have some precedent with other sub-projects opting out, so we can just go tweak some config and not have the stale bot come close our issues.
That sounds good to me. I
Same.
find the bot also distracting in other places, but it's the way it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a long history of not loving it elsewhere and raising that issue, but I've found doing it a little more targeted helps. And I think for here, it's particularly like one of the most egregious places. I can't believe I'm looking at funding issues and they're getting marked stale. Like we should, yes or no.
Yeah. I think it's just mostly we're not doing a good job of closing the loop, because like I am positive Josh got funding and the other thing got. I honestly, I think moving it to steering will make it a lot more visible to us.
Yeah,
But
but
I always forget about the funding repo.
with everything in steering, I would like to make sure that the steering repo doesn't get marked stale. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
should
yeah, yeah.
we should circle back instead of letting the bot just close it. Okay, if there's no objections, I'll send that PR later as well.
Okay. Then I think we are done. In that case, I'll stop recording and see you all around.